go to Hebrews 12 and verse 1 is where we're going to start. We could start in chapter 11 because that runs right into chapter 12, but chapter 11 is what some refer to as the Hall of Faith. It's where we talk about Abraham, Isaac, David, Samson, Gideon, Barak. It goes goes through all the things that they dealt with and how they continued to press on. And then chapter 12 and verse 1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." And that is the verse that we're going to be looking at tonight. It's just that verse 1, well, not just verse 1. This is where we're going to start at, is verse 1. And I want to, usually whenever I've heard somebody teach on this 12 and 1, they focus pretty much on you need to lay aside your sin. And tonight, I believe that everybody in this building tonight is very familiar with what sin is. We have talked about sin, but for most other, I guess they're in Christianity or some of churchianity, sin for some is defined as whatever the pastor speaks against. Whatever convictions the pastor holds, if you break those convictions, that's sin. If you break the standards of the church denomination, then that's defined as sin. And that could be, but here tonight, we're all familiar, we look more at what the Bible calls sin and what that is. And like I said, we're all familiar here tonight and with how the Bible defines sin, but just for the sake of clear understanding of what sin is, for just a few minutes, this word sin that's used in this verse means to miss the mark. We're all very clear and understand what that means. It means to miss the mark. So if you're a sportsman, if you hunt with a bow, or if you hunt with a rifle, or even if you are a firearms enthusiast, when you're at the shooting range, you're shooting at a target, and your hope and desire is that you hit the target that you're shooting at. And more than likely, you're aiming at the bullseye, correct? That's what you want to hit. If you're playing darts, that's what gives you the most points, is if you hit that bullseye. So sin would be aiming at that bullseye, aiming at that target, and then missing it. That's sin. So, but then we have to define what is not sin. And this is where those like us and the majority of Christianity begin to diverge and part ways on. Because unlike some of them, not all of them, some of them, as I've already stated, we look at how the Scriptures define sin. And this is very easily to understand what is not sin once you define what sin is. And there is a word that tells you, or helps you understand what sin is. And that word strikes fear in the hearts of 99.9% of Christianity tonight. And that word would be Torah. would be what defined what sin was. And the reason that it strikes fear in the hearts of people today is because the translators have translated this word Torah into a nasty little word called law. And so for the majority here again of the church, Christianity, no matter what you call yourself or what denomination you belong to, when you say the word law, their knee-jerk response is, we're no longer under the law. Anybody ever heard that before in your lifetime up to this point? Heard that in a conversation today, that we're no longer under law. Before we go to that part, let's just say that Torah, the correct translation of this word, should be teaching or instruction, is what the word actually means. Teaching or instruction. The root to this word means to hit the mark. So if sin is to miss the mark and Torah is to hit the mark, which one do you want to do? You want to follow the Torah. You want to follow the instructions and teachings of Yahweh, of God. But like I said, this word causes people to get a little nervous when you say it, and they say that we're no longer under the law. So what they're actually saying when they say we are no longer under the law is that we are no longer under the teaching and the instructions of Yahweh. We are no longer under the teachings and the instructions of God. That is what they are saying when they say to you and to me, us, that we're no longer under that. They're saying we're no longer following His instructions. And one of the reasons they say that they give this is because we're not under the law. We're now under grace. Well, this also is this is what happens when people repeat what the pastor has said, what the teacher has said, instead of looking it up for themselves and getting an understanding of what is being said. Because if you look at the scriptures, there is only one way that grace is given, and that's through obedience. So then you have to ask, Christine mentioned Noah a minute ago. I mentioned your name, so hi. So Noah was saved by grace. How was he given grace? How was that extended? He was in obedience. Everybody around him was disobedient, and they were cut off. They were killed. But Noah and his family was obedient and was extended grace. So, yes.
For some reason, back in 2008, I always kept notes. At church, the preacher was saying that this particular paragraph was telling us about bitterness, guilt, race, and the Greek word of agony. Part of it, right? Part of it. I don't know about the rest of it.
For an example of what you're saying there, a lot of churchianity will refer to the passage where we're not under the schoolmaster or the instructor. And so the example I would like to give to them is the guy that's learning the piano. When he's under the instruction of the piano teacher, he's playing that chopsticks deal for hours and hours, and then he gives another lesson. He's doing that for hours and hours, learning each thing he's supposed to learn as the instructor gives him the instructions. Once he graduates, he's no longer under the instructor. Mm-hmm. Does he throw away all he's learned and pound on it like a 2-year-old?
No.
Or does he follow all that he has learned?
If he's smart, he'll follow all that he's learned.
So that his music is harmonious. Now, do we want harmonious lives? That's the question.
That's it. But tonight, we're not going to look at the sin aspect, since we all are aware of what sin is. I want us to look at the part where it says, let us also lay aside every weight which clings so closely to us. Now, here's the thing. Sin can be a weight to you and I, but weight is not necessarily a sin. There are weights that can lead to sin, but these weights that we encounter are things that could be placed on us. And his notes is very much correct. These weights could be stigmatisms that are placed upon us. Sometimes, someone tells you that you're stupid. If you grow up hearing all of your life that you're stupid, then you're going to think that you're what? Stupid. That becomes a weight to you as you begin to mature through life. If somebody tells you that you're a failure, that you're not any good, that you're never going to amount to anything, if you hear this every day, of your life, you're going to grow up believing that you're no good, that you're a failure, that you're good for nothing, that you're stupid. And like I said, as you go through life, this becomes to be a weight to you as you're going through life. And then you will, as you grow up, one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to try to find somebody. And so these weights, this you being stupid or no good, or maybe fat, maybe somebody says you're too skinny, so you're anorexic looking, or whatever, and these things cling to you, those aren't sin, correct? There's no sin in being stupid, I don't think. This should be against the law, but it's not against the law. You can't fix.
You can't cure stupid.
Can't fix stupid.
You
can
educate, but you can't cure.
That's right. I can help an ignorant person, but I can't help a stupid person. But so there's no sin in those things. So, but those are weights. They become cumbersome to you. But they can lead to sin. If you're always told that you're stupid, or you're ugly, you're fat, you're skinny, you never amount to anything, as you grow up, you're going to want to attempt to find some group to fit into, some place that you fit in. And so to fit into some places, sometimes we do things that are sin. If you are a high school kid or a school kid, and you're called these names, these things happen to you, you're going to find a group that you can find somebody to relate to. And so to fit in the group, you're going to want to do what the group is doing. Correct? We call it peer pressure. You're going to want to give in so that they will like you. So if you find this group that likes you, they're not going to call you stupid as long as you're doing what they want you to do. And so it's those things that then the weight becomes possibly a sin. Another thing is, another big one that I think is one that can become a weight would be guilt. Now, guilt has a two-way street. Sometimes we take guilt upon ourselves, and sometimes guilt is placed upon us by somebody else. Then the guilt can come up because we think maybe we weren't there when somebody needed us, or we didn't do enough, or and these type of things. You could have helped somebody, or you helped somebody, but maybe you could have helped them a little bit more. And so then we feel guilt, even though in our mind maybe, and everybody around us knows, you did all that you could do in that situation, whatever you were in, but still you feel like you didn't do enough. And so then you deal with the guilt. And then sometimes somebody puts that guilt on you by telling you you didn't do enough, you could have done more. And so everybody understand what I'm saying? There are just some things that we do to ourselves that becomes weights and hinders us on this journey. And that's what so let's look at getting rid of these weights that maybe we deal with, maybe we don't deal with. Everybody, no doubt, has something that you deal with. Everybody in this room has some type of, I've got weight that, I deal with. Mine comes in a physical form that everybody can see. I've got weight. And so tonight we have vegetable tray. Instead of, we got some Little Debbie's for Bill to snack on. He can handle them more than I can. So, but we've all got no doubt issues that we need to put off. And as we look at this, we'll understand why it's important that we get rid of this weight. But he tells us to lay aside every weight, and we'll skip the sin, which clings so closely. This word, lay aside, means to put off or put away, but it also means to carry or wear no longer. So this weight that I believe Paul, the writer of Hebrews, is talking about, he's saying these things that have clung themselves, that cling to you so closely, it's time for you to take those things off. Don't wear them anymore. Everybody understand that? You choose, because here again, God is not going to do what you and I are capable of doing. He's not going to do what you can do. He will do what you can't do. You're the one that's got to make up your mind that if you have been hung with this label of stupid, you're the one that's got to make up in your mind at some point, I'm not going to be called or be labeled with this stupid sign anymore. So you choose to take that sign off and say, that's not who I am. If someone's told you that you're worthless, you choose to take that worthless sign off and say, this is not who I am anymore. This is not my name. Because here again it's saying for us to take off the weights that so closely cling to us. Why? So that we can run the race that we're in. Now there are some people who, when they're training, they put weights on their legs to gain muscle. But in the race that you and I are in tonight, we take the weights off to run the race. So we are not to wear these labels anymore. The word weight is a burden or something that's cumbersome upon you. So you are to take off the thing that's slowing you and I down tonight. We are instructed to take that off and to get rid of it. Get rid of the burden. Get rid of whatever it is that is holding you back. Now we can quit the sin also. You have a choice whether or not you're going to sin or not. And in saying that, understand there's a difference in conviction and condemnation. So this is how we take the sin off. Is if you're sin and something inside of you says you don't need to do that, or you shouldn't have done that, then you stop that. You cut that off. You get rid of that sin. You don't go back to it again. The condemnation comes in and says, you sinned. You failed. This is where you're stupid. Your failure comes in. Now that becomes that weight. Because what we need to understand is if we sin and we go and we say, I messed up, please forgive me, and then we get forgiveness from Yahweh, from God, for that sin, then we drop it there. Y'all see what I'm saying? You don't carry the thought of, I sinned, I made a mistake, I failed. You leave that weight of that thing there at the place you got the forgiveness at. But here's the problem, is we are our own worst enemy. We can get forgiveness from God, from Yahweh, but sometimes we cannot forgive ourselves. And we've talked about this before, about people who say, well, the devil's been on me or after me. Well, it's not always the devil that comes and says, remember this, remember that. It's you yourself who have not forgiven yourself yet for the mistake you've made. And as long as you're dragging that thing with you, it becomes a weight. It's not a sin because you're not doing it anymore, but it now becomes a weight that you're dragging with. You have to imagine, if you will, the ball and chain. You know, you're trying to walk, but you got this big chain and ball dragging behind you. And Paul says you are to take that off. He says, and let us run. This word run means of those who are running in a race. But this word also means to spend one's strength in performing or attaining something. So now Paul is saying to take these things off, these weights off, that you've exerted so much energy in pulling behind you as you're trying to run this race to get on the journey that you've been placed on. Take those off, and now the energy that you have spent pulling these things behind you, now exert that energy in running this race. This is why I say that runners today will put weights on their feet and legs to get muscles to build up. But in this race, we don't do that. We take those things off, and that energy that we have got now, we put toward running this race. But Paul says, and to run it with, the King James is going to say patience, but this one says endurance. And this word endurance points to a steadfastness. It's a characteristic of a man who is not swerved from his deliberate purpose and his loyalty to faith, even in the greatest trials and sufferings. So even though the race may get rough, the race may seem long, the race may get hot, this word here for endurance means you're not going off to the side, you're not going over here, you're not giving up the race, but now you've taken the weights off. You're running this race with the strength that you put in dragging those weights behind you, those weights that were placed on you by the adversary, because it says that they cling so closely to us. This here, or King James says beset us, that so easily beset us. This one says cling so closely. This word here means that they skillfully surround you. Can I tell you this today, that the enemy knows what he's doing. This is why I say that some of these things are put on you, or you put them on yourself, because the enemy is the one that's doing it. He wants these things, these weights, to hinder us. He wants us to use all of our energy and strength in dragging these things, because in his mind, at some point, you're going to get tired. If you don't take off the weights, if you don't quit, if you don't take off the labels and things that has been placed on you that slows you down, chances are you're going to get tired in the race. And usually if you get tired, eventually you give up in the race. This is why he is admonishing us here in Hebrews to get rid of these things that we're dealing with. The sin and the weight. So let's go to Philippians 3. Is everybody following me? Mm-hmm. But we're taking off these weights because, and remember that we are running a race. Philippians 3 and 12. Paul says, not that I have already obtained this or am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own, because Messiah Yeshua has made me his own. Brothers, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead. I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God and Messiah Yeshua. So here we have a couple of words that Paul says that he does. He says, I press on. This press on means to run swiftly in order to catch a person or a thing. Figuratively speaking, of one who in a race runs swiftly to reach the goal. So this is what Paul says that he does. I see my goal, I see the finish line ahead, and I'm not slacking up. I'm not slowing down. Well, how does he say that he does that? He gives the same thing, and not the same language, but the same idea that he gives in the book of Hebrews. He said, but one thing I do, forgetting those things, what things lay behind. This word forgetting means just that, to forget. But it also means no longer caring for. So here, let's just, we keep going back to this, but here's what Paul is trying to get across to us today, is that he has taken off the labels, the stigmas that were placed on him. We know from even when we were looking at the Apostle Paul that he was not a very popular individual. He had tests, he had trials, he had things occur to him that none of us would want to happen to any of us. But Paul here is saying, the one thing that I do is I am forgetting. I no longer care about those things that are behind me because I keep on pressing on. I forgot about all the hurt. Hurt can be one of those weights that can slow us down and hinder us from running the race that has been set before us. Anybody here familiar with hurt? I'm familiar with hurt. I've been hurt. I've been hurt before we started this walk. I've been hurt during we started this walk. But I cannot. One thing I've learned to do, Tom, is when the hurt occurs, it hurts. When someone who is close to you is now turned their back on you, that hurts. It hurts when they don't call anymore, when they ignore you in public. That hurts because you know deep down you've done nothing to this individual to cause them to ignore you or to even talk about you. I never knew how popular I was in Paris until we began to walk this journey. And then I realized how many people actually knew who I was. I never knew how popular the denomination I come out of until we started practicing the things that are in this Bible that every denomination claims to follow. But when you start doing those things, then you find out, Joanne, how popular you really are in some denominations and the things that are said. But that's hurt. So what Paul is saying is, forget the hurt. Forget what is behind you, and you set your eyes on the goal and put your energy and your strength in that. But here again, if we wear that hurt, that's going to hinder us in the race. And here again, hurt could possibly cause you to lose the race altogether if you carry that on the racetrack. If you do that. He says, but forgetting, not caring for what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal. This word goal is not something that's close to you. This word goal means a distant mark looked at. The goal that you see at the end of the race, at the end of where you're headed. We have a vacation destination in mind this year, and we see that coming up closer and closer. I'm not there yet, but I see the goal, the location that I want to be at for vacation. Same thing in our spiritual walk. We're on a journey. We see what the goal is, and so that's what we are to keep in our mind. And he says, I press on toward the goal for the prize. This word prize means, and this is not Common Core scripture here. This word prize does not mean that everybody gets one. If you don't finish the race, you don't get the prize. You're not equal with everybody, but the word prize here is the award given to the victor in the games. When I was in school, you didn't get a prize for losing when I was in school.
They've changed that now.
They've changed that now.
Everybody gets that.
Everybody gets, the kid that's got the highest GPA and the dumb kid, bottom of the list, bottom of the grading pole there, gets the same award that the genius gets today. That's not Bible. That's not Bible. The Bible is to finish the race. That's the goal. You're given the prize for finishing the race. Now, you may come in last. You still get the prize. But you've got to finish the race. And this is what Paul is saying that he does. He does no longer carry the weights. And if we go to 1 Peter chapter 5. Paul has told us in Hebrews and in Philippians to take the weights off, not to carry these things. And Peter in chapter 5 is going to tell us what to do with those weights. Chapter 5 and verse 6 says, "Humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, so that the proper time He may exalt you." And verse 7 gives us the information on what to do. It says, "Casting all your anxieties on Him, because He cares for you." Verse 8 says, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." But Peter tells us in verse 7, "Casting all your anxieties on Him, because He cares for you." The word here is casting. And this means to throw upon or to place upon. It's a compound word in the Greek. And one of the words means to cast, to throw down, to set down. But now here is the key to this. We saw the boys getting the psalm books. Everybody remember that? Mm-hmm. The boys walk into the bookcase to get the books, and this is how they were moving. This is not the casting that Peter is talking about. Now, everybody saw our Paul, not the Apostle Paul. Our Paul, go get the psalm books. Paul was moving like this.
With a purpose.
To get the books, because Paul understood if we're going to sing a song, we got to have the books.
Amen.
And to sing the song, you have to have the book now. Now, the boys did hand the books out. I'm just picking at David. He's sitting over there. But they did help hand the books out for the record. But the example is the pace in which they were going. So this word casting does not mean the word casting means you're doing it in haste. Pretty much, anybody ever play hot potato when you were a kid growing up? You had the, whatever it was, a rock, whatever, ball, and you passed it around. You passed it around the circle, and you done it fast because why? You didn't want this hot potato when the music stopped or whatever it was that we played the hot potato with. You didn't want it because if you had it, I believe that meant you were out of the game. When the music stopped, you had the potato, you were out. Same thing here. We have to look at these weights that Paul and Peter are talking about as they don't belong to us. That's that is the thing that we have to get in our mind, is these weights that are placed on us, that we carry, don't belong to us. And so with haste, when one comes upon you, you need to get that thing off, because we have to understand that if we are possibly caught with this weight, here again, you could possibly lose the race. You might not, there's a possibility you might not finish if you're dragging this weight that doesn't belong to you. Everybody understand that? And he says to cast it on Yeshua. Cast it on Yahweh, because he cares for you. What we have to understand, to remember tonight, is that we have a God that loves us. We have a cheering section in this race, and he is cheering for you and I as we're walking this race. He wants to see us win. You know, there are some people who, I had somebody in today, they were talking about their brother, and they say he's not reliable. They said he'll say, well, let me know when you're moving and I'll be there to help you. She said she called when they were moving and he never answered the phone. Or let me know when you're going to work on this and I'll help you get the part that you need. Well, they called and he was no use at all. Anytime that they needed him after he said I would be there, then he dodges them because he doesn't really want to help. And I said, well, I've got people like that in my life. I think we all do. Those ones that, as long as it's verbiage, they're always going to be there. But when it comes time to operate, you can't get a hold of them. Well, we don't have, that's not the way that our God operates. He's going to do everything possible to help you finish the race. But he's not going to finish it for you. He's not going to run it for you or me, because he's not in the race. He's not running the race. He is the goal that you're looking at and that you're headed toward is him. So he's going to stand there and cheer you on, but he can't and will not run it for you. But he will give you every advantage. Here again, when you were in school, if you were a fast runner, when I was in school, if you were a fast runner and then there was a slow runner, the slow kid went first. He may have a 30-second advantage over the fast kid. So that way it's an equal where everybody has a chance to be in the race. Everybody stands a chance to win. This is the same thing that Yahweh, God, has done for you and me. He's given us every advantage. And we've talked about some of the advantages that he's given us. He's given us armament. He's given us armor. He's given us weapons that we can use to win this race. And the reason being is because Peter says, be sober-minded, be watchful, because your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. And so we talked about this a few weeks ago, and we talked about the thief, how he's a liar. And this devil, as you're running the race, he's sitting over in the hedges, lobbing these weights at you, trying to get you to slow down, trying to get these things attached to you. Because while your goal is to get to God, to get to Yahweh, his goal is to keep you from getting there. His goal is to get you to give up in the race and to quit running. That's his goal. That's his job. And when we begin to realize and understand this, and keep this in our mind when the difficulties do happen, when the problems do arise, when the cares of this life do pop up, these weights and stuff, we're going to be able to maneuver around them and realize it's just another obstacle in the race. Yeshua said that the way was narrow for those that were going to run in the race. But when we think narrow, we think tight. You know, I like to go to caves. what do you call that, spelunking? Is that what you call it if you like to adventure in caves and stuff? I like to do that, and we were in Hannibal, Missouri, one year with our closest friends that we have, and we went there for vacation, and they had the cave that Mark Twain, we went to Mark Twain's hometown, is where we were at, where he grew up at, where Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn are based out of. And so you could go to the cave where I think Tom Sawyer and his girlfriend get lost in the cave. Well, you can go to that cave that story is based on. This was a cave that Jesse James used as a hideout. And they have, he wrote his name on a wall in that cave, and they brought signature people in to verify that that was Jesse James' hideout, and they said, yes, that's his signature. But they had this spot in the cave called what? Fat Man Squeeze? Fat Man Squeeze is what they called this. And so Sean, who is taller than I am, and Sean is bigger than I am, didn't know if he would fit through Fat Man Squeeze. So they let us go through the cave for free till you got to Fat Man Squeeze. Now what they didn't tell us was they turned the lights out sporadically in the cave. So you've got us, and we're walking till we get to Fat Man Squeeze. And we get through Fat Man Squeeze, the lights go out, and you hear a... And Sean has knocked himself into a rock that was hanging from the cave when the lights went out.
Ouch.
So that's what happens when you walk through Fat Man Squeeze in the dark. But it's a narrow spot. But this word narrow, that when Yeshua is talking about this, it not only means tight, but it also means bumpy. It also means there's going to be obstacles. It's not a smooth walking space when he talks about it being a narrow. So right from the very beginning, he tells you it's going to be tight. And there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be rocks in the way as you're going. So Art's talked about this, we've mentioned it before, but one of the things that you do not learn when you come to salvation from churches is that there are problems now involved in your walk, because they don't share that with you, because they don't want you to be discouraged, and then you find out the hard way, and then that's when they throw one of them weights on you and say, well, why did you fall? If you were as close to God as you needed to be, you wouldn't have fell for that trick.
Had enough faith.
Yeah, if you'd have had enough faith. You need to pray more. You need to read more. You need to fast more. Now, somebody should have told that poor individual when they started, you're a target now. There's a lion hiding in the bushes waiting to trip you up, but nobody shared that with them. So tonight you're learning, and you have learned, and you already knew, that you have an adversary. There is a lion that's hiding in the bushes, that's walking around seeking to devour you. And that word devour means to swallow up. And we need to remember that is his job. And that being his job, if he's an employee, then he has what? A boss. His boss is the one that we're headed toward. The devil's out there roaring like a lion, making himself appear as a lion. But at the same time, God, Yahweh, has him on a short leash. He can do nothing unless he allows him to do it. He's not one of these just out there randomly picking off people, but he's there because God thinks more of you and me than we think of ourselves sometimes. And we talked, I believe, Thursday night in the Bible study Thursday night, that you never put more on us than what we can handle. Let's go to Matthew chapter 11. Verse 28. So Paul says, take the junk off. Peter tells us to cast it upon him. here is what Yeshua says in verse 28. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. First, what we'll look at here is this is Yeshua, as we've already said. The first thing he says in verse 28 is, come. Come to me. And here again, this is not a word where he picks up the phone and says, come visit. Or come see me whenever you get a chance. This word here, what he is saying in this word is, come here now. Come to me. Is what this word come is insinuating here. It's not just casual come on by, but he is emphatic about come to me. See, too often when we're hung with these weights, there are some people out there, there are alcoholics today because there was a weight hung on them. Be it because they were told they'll never amount to anything. Or they were given a self-esteem. Self-esteem is a weight that can be hung on people. Or because maybe they have had this guilt sign hung upon them. And so to get rid of that, they look for another avenue. They look at alcohol. They look at possibly drugs. Some people look at self-hurt. You have people who cut themselves because they're trying to get rid of the weight that they're carrying. And their only out they feel is if I drink, if I shoot up, if I cut myself. And some people, to try to get rid of the weight, harm others. They pass the hurt that was put on them, they pass it on to somebody else. They say, I don't know the statistics, but they say if a person was abused as a child, that they will abuse when they have children. It's something that's passed on to them. If a parent was an alcoholic, then some say there's a percentage that this child will be an alcoholic. And so these people, and then other people that are verbally hurt other people, trying to get the weight that's put on them off of them. But Yeshua says, here's where you put the weight. Here's where you put the weight. And he says, so come here to me, all who labor. This word labor means to grow weary, to grow tired or exhausted. It also means to grow weary or exhausted from intense labor, united with trouble and toil. So he's talking to people who are tired, who have been dragging the weight around in their race, and you're tired and you're exhausted because you're dragging the weight. He says, come to me. Come to me. If that's where you're at, don't quit the race. Don't quit running, but come to me. And then he says, those that are tired from dragging the weight, then heavy laden, that means to place a burden. So here again, those that are weighted down, that are tired from the weight that's been placed upon you, come to me. And he says, and I will give you rest. This word rest means an intermission or a recreation. It's just like if you're sitting in a long movie and you're watching a 2-hour movie, 3-hour movie, you're in the theater. I don't know if they still do it or not, but they'll pause the movie, and you'll get a chance to go to the restroom, get you a soda, buy that $10 box of popcorn, and $5 cup of soda, and then come back and finish the movie. So what he says is, I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to allow you, I will rest you, but I'm not taking you out of the race. You're just having break time is what you're having. This word comes from a root word. It says to cause or permit one to cease from any movement or labor in order to recover and collect his strength. It means to give rest or to refresh. It means to make to cease or desist, to restrain a thing or a person from something. So he's saying, come to me, and whatever it is you're dragging, I'm going to take that off of you. But here's the thing. I'm going to give you a chance to take a break from carrying it, is what he's saying. Now, it's up to you and I if we put it back on again and finish the race, or if we take it off, give it to him, and let him have it. Everybody with me?
Yes.
He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. But he says, take my yoke upon you. And so we've all no doubt seen a yoke of oxen, or what a yoke looks like. We're all familiar with that. Yokes were made to fit the animal. And so he's saying, take my yoke upon you. And he says, learn of me. And this is a Hebraism is what he is given here, because this word yoke actually means take my teaching and my instructions upon you. He says, because my burden is light. Now, we've just heard that these weights and burdens are heavy. But then we think of where these all are coming from. They're coming from the adversary. They're coming from your enemy, the one that's trying to get you to lose the race, to quit the race. And Yeshua says, take my yoke upon you. So your adversary, and we talked about this when we started out, the adversary convinces us that we don't need his yoke. You don't need the yoke of Yeshua. You don't need the yoke of Yahweh, because the adversary says no one can carry that yoke. That yoke is heavy. That burden is heavy. You can't carry that. No one. Has anybody ever heard this? No one can keep those laws. Who tells you that? The people that tell you that are the ones that are throwing these weights on us. The ones that are telling you that are the ones that don't like you.
They're the ones loading the wagon.
They're the ones what?
Loading the wagon.
Yeah, they're the ones loading the wagon. They had rather you wear white pearls and red lipstick and have blue hair than to follow the commandments of God. Because if you're going to be with us, you got to look a particular way, you got to act a particular way, you have to say these things, and they tell you what you can wear and what you can't wear. They tell you if you can have facial hair, if you can't have facial hair. They tell you what length your heels have to be and what length they can't be. Some of them tell you what kind of pantyhose you have to wear. Some of them tell you what you have to look like if you're going to be on their platform. Some of them tell you where you can go and where you can't go. So what are they doing? They're making you paranoid, because if you go somewhere they say don't go, the meaning behind that is if you go there, you're going to go to hell. I grew up in a denomination that said if you go to the movie theater, that's a sin. That's wrong. You go to a movie theater. If you go to a baseball game, that's a sin. If you go to the amusement park, that's a sin. If you have a TV, that's a sin. That's what I grew up in, you see, because you were worried It actually made you wonder, what's in a baseball game that's going to cause you to see it? What's at Walmart? What's on the TV they don't want you to see? Because they wanted you to walk what they felt was the correct way. They wanted you to keep their laws, but don't keep what's in the book, because that's been done away with, and now these man-made tradition. Well, didn't Yeshua talk about that? He told the religious folk of his day, you've done a great job at teaching man-made traditions as the commandments of God. And so this is what we have outside in the religious world today. Now, should there be some things we don't do? Absolutely. There are some places that we shouldn't go? Absolutely. I don't think that any child of God belongs at the strip club. I don't think you belong down there at the adult bookstore, if there's even one in Paris anymore. There's just some places you don't go. Is it wrong to go to the movie theater? No. But what the problem is what are you watching when you're there? That's the issue that you have. Is it wrong to go to a ball game? No. The issue is, what are you doing when you're there? Are you behaving? Are you acting like a child of God ought to act? Or do you act one way here, and you go and you act another way out there? See, there's a problem.
Do you look like the Amish when you go to the beach?
Yeah. Yeah. We went to the beach last year, and everybody, I guess, thought we were Amish folk. Because I left my Speedos at the house.
We weren't planning on going that day anyway.
No, we weren't planning on going that day. But you got
we ended up there.
Lana wearing a long black skirt. I'm wearing jeans. Hallie's wearing a long skirt. And you got these Amish out there playing, in the water, and people on the beach half naked. They must have thought the wagon had pulled up or something. And we're looking for the horses. But it's, we went there, but I wasn't, nobody was wearing a bikini, nobody was wearing a thong. You went to the beach, you still looked decent, not indecent, and you still had a good time. It's not where you're at. As long as, we've already stayed the places, you got no reason to be. But how are you conducting yourself when you're there? If you're here and you're worshiping God, and then you're at the ball game, you can't stand up because you're drunk. There's a problem with that, and it's a heart problem.
Scott?
Yes, sir.
I've only been to one Tennessee football game at the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
It killed me to go in there and watch all these people. I mean, how many guys did I hold? And they jump up and scream and carry on. But not one of them is saying anything about God.
Yep.
That just I couldn't stay. We left. Matthew.
And that's the point. You do have church people that go.
Oh, I know.
And they'll act a fool at the football game, and then you can't get them to stand up.
Can't get them to clap, raise a hand.
To clap at a church service. Who are you a fan
high
of?
school. I mean, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who are you a fan of? I mean, the football player ain't never done nothing for me.
It might leave you a million.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's now.
Rather played the lottery.
Yeah.
Might leave
Yeah.
you nothing. Broke.
But this is what he's saying. Take my teachings, my instructions upon you, because they are light. It's when you step outside of those teachings and those instructions that the weight begins to take place. When you begin to disobey and not follow those instructions. And I think for the last scripture, I've got Isaiah 41 here. is the benefits of following the instructions, for staying in the race, for casting these things upon Him. Isaiah 41:10. Yahweh speaking says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Behold, all who are incensed against you shall be put to shame and confounded. Those who strive against you shall be as nothing and shall perish. You shall seek those who contend with you, but you shall not find them. Those who war against you shall be as nothing at all. For I, Yahweh your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not. I am the one who helps you." This is what it's all about. Understanding that He will help us if we'll just follow the instructions, if we'll obey His word, and just put all these things that weight us down, take them off, give them to Him because He wants them. I said at one church years ago that God is the best trash collector I've ever come in contact with. My trash collector will not knock on my door, come into my kitchen, and get my trash, or wherever the trash is. You've got to take the trash, put it in the road. He comes by, jumps off the truck or whatever, puts the trash on, and he's gone. But God will walk into your house and walk into wherever you got the trash, and He'll take it, and He'll take all you got. He don't have a problem with taking your trash. Now, I don't know anybody who's got trash and the trash man come by and you say, just leave it, get it next time. I'm just going to keep it in the house. And then the trash piles up and the trash man keeps coming by and keeps coming by. You keep saying, no thank you, the stink's not got bad enough yet. I can still walk in the front door. And no, who collects trash? Does anybody at their house, I know I got to empty our trash, but does anybody at the house purposely stack up trash at your house? I know of some that have. They're nasty. But nobody, if the trash man comes by, you want him to do what? Take the trash. You're more than happy to give him the trash. But it amazes me how that when God comes by, sometimes we want to stand in front of the trash door. Nothing here to be seen. We talked about the lamp at Bible study Thursday night. He takes the lamp, shines the light. But us, we want to hold on to some trash. When He says, give it to me, I'll take it. I'll get rid of it for you. I think in Psalms, it says that He takes it and He casts it as far as the east is from the west. Once you give it to Him, you never see it again. But here's the thing, you've got to give it to Him. He is a gentleman. He's not going to kick in your door and say, give me your trash. He's going to come by and ask, got any trash today? And it's up to you to say, yeah, I do. And then He'll take it. And we won't have to worry about it anymore. But the important thing is that we put off the weights. We get rid of the weight. Amen?